workshop, just to show those who weren't able to go today. So with that, I am going to ask...
It's not recording. All right. Go back to the settings. Go to this. Go to the output. Just delete that. Just do it to your desktop. Excuse me. Oh, you're streaming. You're streaming already. You're streaming.
Smart communities, smart corridors, connected and all the opportunities involved in that. There's so many opportunities, so many people. I've talked to the Secretary has an argument to all of us. You can see the enormity of, I think, the challenges, but the opportunities for this board to make some policy decisions, funding decisions, on how we can a lot of effort. The other ones are unmanned systems and police, tethered drones, survey, management, accidents including involving universities, community colleges, and their students, showing using them, using opportunities.
You can unmute this, yeah.
Where she's at.
She's a student for student.
So we're using that this year, Virginia Beach, Fredericksburg, London, and Roma. 200 attendees, great ideas. It's amazing what these kids, people can do in 24 hours. They come up with great ideas and new solutions using our data, and we want to see how we continue to do that. I think
once we go back there, shift it up and over, and then we have to put it
even high school students can participate.
I'll adjust it. Just tell me whether it's. We're gonna have to move it over to where it's showing like shoulder.
We have a better model. We can handle staff and how we can be corporations and business partners to engage in sponsors. So a lot of good stuff going on, and I'd like to also suggest that we have a presentation on data and see some of the ideas and policies that so I think our challenge is to work with CIP and the Department of Commerce to see how to take those ideas and incubate them into business. That's the some business opportunities that we can do. So, great meeting. I'm very well. Come if you can.
So the December meeting, I'm hoping that we can have Kathy get an overview of where we are in the innovation office, and then I'd really love to plan a CTV meeting where we have active participants. Because the part is not to describe it is very different from your thing. So we'll see that. So thank you for that. Commissioner, I know you have one.
I do. Here's this plan for place that I passed out. I'm going to say it's our business plan, calendar year 2018 through 2021. When I came on board, I developed the 9 tenets that we wanted to focus on during my tenure as commissioner. I'll just reiterate what those are back in March board meeting. I indicated that we're going to keep a focus on executing our program, maintaining our infrastructure, ensuring that we have a pipeline, a sustainable pipeline be looking forward to focus on operations, highway safety and operations, focusing also on our workforce development, being transparent in the things that we do, bringing a business focus to the agency, and being innovative. With all of those key tenets, last but not least, making sure that we have a safe environment for both our employees as well as the people who use our facilities. So what you have in front of us is about 6 months of work by the agency with collaboration for district engineers, set laws, division administrators, and executive team to be able to pull together what we're going to focus our energies on in a very succinct manner, just in 9 pages of where we're going to spend our energy to deal with the agency board in each of those 9 areas. So I'm going to get that out to you, certainly come back in the December board meeting if you so desire, get an overview of what is contained in the business plan, but just finish this up Friday. I wanted to have this available to you today before we go into the other transportation conference as well. So you want to have any questions now or in December, we'll follow up again later. We're going to pass this out to you this morning.
Jennifer, do you want to comment on the annual report license?
Sure. So all we should also have as well this report through this, which is called the I-66 Commuter Choice Annual Report. And this is actually a report put together by the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission. And I don't know if you can taste it, you can see it in the audience right now, should not be, but they did bring copies for all of you to have. What this shows is all of the projects that are being funded with the toll revenue stream from I-66 east of Beltway. It's a good compendium of projects. What it does is show the description of the projects, what the level of financial support was, the benefits to the whole payers, and also the status of the projects. So it also does summarize all the projects and what's funded and how as well. So if you have any questions about it, please let me know.
I just want to, from my kind of remarks or questions about the meeting, I just have 2 items. The first is that last night sadly, I was not able to share some work that I had to do. But I do want to thank Mr. Malkin and Mr. Miller and the others in this hall in Hampton Roads. It's great to be in Norfolk. It's a beautiful place, and certainly even being here for such a short time last night was extremely special. Really was, I will say. So thank you all very, very much for that. So the 2 items have to do, since I was able to read last night, I have some time to make. It was really reflecting on some of the comments that were made yesterday about you, and I wanted to thank you all for everything that you said. Words of caution, thoughts about the process, how we can do it better, how we can get buy-in for this. Because it's really important that as we move forward, that everyone would feel as though that your this is really going to matter. And we're doing it right when you heard about it, and Mr. Gage brought it to attention that it was on the radio before we even came back to the board. The input going forward is a very important part of the process. I mentioned yesterday that I think we received 3,000 comments. All of them are read and considered as we are putting the plan together. But the driver from the General Assembly in legislation was to create this study. It's the CCB's responsibility that we do this, and our goal is to create the best of the very can, with the best information that we can, with the best economic analysis that we can. And so we are going to create the most accurate information. We're going to prioritize the projects. We're going to make a commitment to making them multimodal. And we're going to create finance there is an issue and there are problems along this border that Mr. Whitfield highlighted yesterday. And so as we go through this, we want to make sure that we're trying to develop as many information that is going to help us.
What the heck is going on?
Mr. Johnson, it feels very dark. Since we brought a lamp for my second time this morning. Yes.
Real quick, I just had a presentation this morning as well. I will say a couple things. First of all, if you put the number of crashes and talking to last night, the whole corridor for the last 5 years, how many people have been injured, how many people have died, it's pretty gross numbers, but we're talking about making anyone safe. And you put that in information, that would probably grab a number of people to I suggested 5 years, you can't be the last 5 years, maybe the last 3 years, but he told us that figures yesterday, I believe this, that was just for your district, is that correct? And I said, my goodness. The other thing is population, also we have 1.7 million people in Hampton Roads that obviously has money more sales tax or gas tax. If you took the population of the entire area, because from Warren County, Kirk County, and Washington County, they have to feel this is their issue. And the other thing I would suggest that EDC group number 1 and 2. I know they don't affect by 81, but if you are an elected official, like say senator, part of your district is going to have this tax, and part of the district is not going to have the tax, it's going to be a pretty hard sell. And if I had a convenience store and Ray had another convenience store in the county of Georgia, you can sell gas cheaper than me. I don't know if you sell any other products. And I think another thing too, we got to realize people traveling in the corridor. Virginia has a good gas price compared to Tennessee, especially West Virginia and Maryland. So it won't be a competitive advantage. That's pretty common.
Just get it back.
I don't think anyone has heard. It's been a lot of conferences and opportunity over the years.
Okay.
And one of the things is that we gave the presentation a lot. And so you're talking about this is actually a state that we actually
Took me a minute to find somebody that can help.
Nick, that we need to open up everyone for the case live and private institutes. I think all the accidents and the crashes, the delays, the number of trucks, $312 million going down the border every day. The number of crashes that actually delayed 6 hours. So I think each time we tell the story, it runs through everybody. So I think that will also help us. Anything else you want to move on? Okay, and then the second thing I have to do, which is somewhat sad but important, is that you all know that Deputy Secretary McNally retired. His wife, Emily Elliott, is now head of the Department of Human Resources for our Commonwealth. And I made a glowing recommendation to Emily. I didn't realize that they were her 2-year-old daughter, and so Chris walked to my office the next day and let me know that he was going to retire to take care of her daughter. And in my brain, the back of my head, oh, that's such a glowing recommendation. Because they're both such talented people and such a great family. But I will just tell you what it was. And so he said to me on the day he walked in my office, my last day is going to be August 31st. And I said, oh, that's the day that
Just the gate on the mic output and on the street.
And so he agreed to stay on until Nick got back from maternity leave. And brought Mercedes Bears over to our office. We were working through so many contracts that required the sales and keeping members, acting deputies, so Quincy worked with them. Then Mercedes and Nick worked together when they had, hey, Steve. somewhat, there was a lot of change going on for us on the inside of the community because of the plan and really because of the commitment of community to stay on and actually help with this transition. I worked and begged him to try to come to this particular meeting, but Emily is coming to this meeting, and so he was saying, but he is listening this morning, listening to this presentation. And so I wanted to read a proclamation from the governor, which actually is in 9 months. And it was light. So, hold on. Okay, you laugh. I went around and I asked a number of you, can you read this? And they said, by virtue of the authority vested by the Constitution of Virginia, the governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia, there is hereby officially recognized Quinton D. Elliott. Whereas Quinton Elliott was appointed by Governor Ralph Northam on January 15, 2018, as the Deputy Secretary of Transportation, and whereas prior to his appointment, Quinton served the Commonwealth for 32 years, starting May 7th, with the Virginia Department of Transportation, whereas recently as Chief Deputy Commissioner of VIA, and whereas Quinton began his career with VIA as a transportation engineer, and through his hard work and dedication, he served as the Assistant Resident Engineer in Franklin and Williamsburg, as Resident Engineer in Williamsburg, a State Asset Management Division District Administrator for the Fredericksburg District, and whereas Quinton is credited with the construction of several including the Jefferson Avenue interchange and so many of our community projects that we has been helping us with. He created the Borough Transportation Asset Management System implementation, whereas the system assisted and he assisted the system in maintaining more than 58,000 miles of continuous roads, bridges, tunnels, and equipment. And whereas Quinton also had a decorated career in the Virginia International Bar, where he served as the commander of the 192 Civil Engineering Squadron and commander of the Heavy Equipment Flight for the 2003 Red Horse Squadron. And whereas, as noted, Quinton earned the meritorious service medal for his service to my congregation and life and freedom. Whereas Quinton graduated from the Virginia Military Institute, which he was a member, and a bachelor's degree, a bachelor's degree in engineering. Whereas the governor and the Board of Administration are so grateful for Quinton's dedicated service. And Commonwealth.
I first encountered when he was the district administrator in Pittsburgh, and I was working with a contractor. First thing you know, 15 minutes after meeting you couldn't tolerate insufficient effort or inefficient effort on this project. Yet the ones that perhaps didn't perform as well as others still showed the same respect. But he always promoted quality work. He promoted good work ethic. He promoted safety back for safety necessity in the house. If you're not safe, you can't work for anybody. He just promoted that 3 years ago. And I lost touch with him a little bit after I moved on in my career to something else. But I got back to my legislature to take a job as secretary. He reignited our relationship, answered questions, gave me advice, offered advice when I needed it on issues that he has some insight to. And then it was just a thrill when I was to be in that leadership position, engaging again. And so if you look at his phone, there's the text when he, and when I heard him retired, I said, I'm not going to let him, I'm not accepting it.
He knew VDOT. He knew how to put chains on a snowplow. He knew how to get a dead deer off the road. He knew how to build a road. He knew how to design a road. He knew how to maintain a road, operate a road. He knew it all. I mean, and that's the asset he brought, is he knew everything about VDOT, top to bottom. You know, he cared so deeply for people. That's the thing that I think is the number one thing in my mind, is that he did truly care. And, you know, going back to the VMI thing, you know, they pride themselves on developing leaders for the Commonwealth. There you go. He was truly a poster child of leadership for the Commonwealth, not only military service, but also in his role with VDOT and at the Secretary's office. And I would say the one thing that I know for sure is that he definitely left Virginia, not just VDOT, he left Virginia a better place than he found it. So congratulations, Quentin.
Thank you for Quentin. Okay. And so with that, Quentin, again, congratulations and just thank you for everything. We will move into our action meeting. Do we have people signed up to speak? Oh, I'm looking for my son. We're going to go into our public comment period. We ask people, you know, who are here to try to limit your remarks to 3 minutes. Which was really challenging for me because as you were speaking, we don't respond. It's really your opportunity to address the board, and for us to listen. And so, I know your name is Mike. Can you read that?
Zito.
Mike, our old friend Mike, welcome. How are you?
Well, thank you. Mike Zito. Is my last name. Zito. Z-I-T.
Zito.
Madam Secretary, members of the board, good morning. My name is Mike Zito. I'm a resident here in Virginia Beach. I work for Titan America. Titan is a vertically integrated producer of ready-mix concrete and cement based here in Virginia. Titan employs over 500 people directly and countless more indirectly through its sand mines, its ready-mix concrete plants, and its cement plant, which is located in Roanoke. I greatly appreciate the opportunity to address the board today. My comments are centered on the state of the pavement type selection process in Virginia, and more specifically on the elements of competition in how Virginia elects to pave its network of roadways. As you know, the Commonwealth spends hundreds of millions of dollars on pavement every year, over 95% of that on asphalt pavement. According to public bid records, a significant percentage of paving projects awarded in the state are for 1 or 2 bidders, meaning little to no competition. Over-reliance on one method for paving Virginia's roads does not fully capitalize on the positive benefits of competing industries. Introducing and encouraging inter-industry competition between asphalt and concrete is a means to contrive the most value out of the dollars Virginia spends on paving its roadways. There are substantial economic benefits of inter-industry competition. MIT has undertaken a study, a comprehensive analysis of DOT bidding on 10 years of data, 298,000 pay items from 47 state DOTs. The results clearly show that increasing competition between paving materials lowers paving costs for both asphalt and concrete projects and results in significant taxpayer savings. Industry efforts to promote and develop a competitive two-pavement system have yielded little progress to date. There is no competition under the status quo. And without healthy competition, Virginia is essentially reliant upon a monopolistic state of paving material selection. Please know that my comments are not to make a case for concrete or against asphalt. Both materials are effective and have their place. My comments are to make a case against a monopolistic state of pavement material selection, and 4, competition. Establishing a healthy concrete paving industry in Virginia will stretch the dollars Virginia has available to spend on its roadways and benefit the taxpayer and the VDOT. The value proposition is for Virginia to intentionally introduce competition as a means to capitalize on reduced cost and drive pricing down for both asphalt and concrete. I strongly urge the CTB to reevaluate and facilitate a pavement type selection process and to introduce a healthy two-pavement system in the state of Virginia. Thank you for the time and the opportunity to address the board.
Thank you, Mr. Zita. I don't have anyone else signed up. Would anyone in the audience today like to address the board? Okay, then we will go into our first action item, and we have Susan Keene. Oh,
Rich.
okay, I've only gotten that right once, I think. Okay, do I have a motion on the minutes?
Okay.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Ms. Keene, good morning.
Good morning, Madam Secretary and members of the board. I have 2 action items for your consideration this morning. Both are in the Hampton Roads District. The first is on I-64 in York County. It's a limited access change along the corridor for segment 3 that will provide right-of-way and to accommodate the right-of-way for the storm drainage and stormwater management facilities in segment 3. The design public hearing was held in May of 2017 in Williamsburg, Virginia. The Hampton Roads Transportation Planning Organization has endorsed the project by resolution dated March 2006. The project was also endorsed by the County Administrator of York in August of 2018 and Federal Highway in September of 2018. The total project cost is $311 million, and I request your approval for the limited access change.
Make a motion we approve. Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Right, the second item that I have is also for a limited access change, and this is from a temporary access that was granted in 2011 along I-264. It was for a temporary land use permit for Norfolk Southern Railway to design and construct a segment of the project consisting of the realignment of existing double track and a side rail. In order to continue negotiations to make this a permanent land use and a permanent land use permit, CTB must first approve this break as permanent. So DRPT and VDOT hereby request this approval of this permanent access break.
Make a motion we approve. Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Ms. Pryor, good morning.
Morning, Madam Secretary, members of the board. I have 2 items for your consideration this morning. The first is the addition of 6 projects to the 6-year improvement program. These are in Culpeper, Richmond, and Northern Virginia districts. All are fully funded and not subject to smart scale, and I recommend your approval.
Approval. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Thank you. The second item I have is my normal monthly transfers of surplus funds to existing and scheduled projects, and I recommend your approval.
Aye.
Brown, good morning.
Morning. I'm Chairman, members of the board. I have 4 action items for you this month. Item number 5 on the agenda is a request for revenue sharing transfer. Warren County in the Stanton District has requested to establish an existing project in the 6-year improvement program as eligible under the revenue sharing program and to transfer surplus revenue sharing funding from a completed project. The project that would receive the transferred funds will pave an unpaved road, Ashby Station Road, under the rural rustic road concept. The project will be administered by VDOT utilizing state forces and is estimated to cost $265,000. The requested funding transfer will allow the locality to advance the project construction add date to April 2019 from its current add date of December 2022. This request is consistent with the board's transfer guidelines. The Local Systems Division recommends approval of the request and the transfer of the state revenue sharing funding in the amount of $132,500 for this project.
Move.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Item number 6 on the agenda is also a request for a revenue sharing transfer. Warren County, also in the same district, has requested to establish an existing project as eligible in the revenue sharing program and to transfer surplus revenue sharing funding from 6 completed projects. The project to be established will pave an unpaved road, Rocky Lane, under the rural rustic road concept. The project will be administered by VDOT utilizing state forces and is estimated to cost $360,000. Warren County will be able to utilize the surplus revenue sharing funding and will allow CTB formula unpaved road funds to be used on other projects in their 6-year improvement program. The project will advance the construction to April 2019. This request is consistent with the board's transfer guidelines. Local Assistance Division would request your approval of this request.
I make a motion to approve this.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you.
Item number 7 on the agenda is a request for recreational access funds. The City of Charlottesville and Culpeper District has requested recreational access program funding to assist in providing bikeway access to planned facilities within the East McIntyre Park. The proposed access project will provide a 10-foot wide, half-mile-long, multi-use trail from Melbourne Road to a planned skate park and other recreational facilities. The City of Charlottesville will administer the project, and Culpeper District has concurred on the project design and estimate of $225,000 for the proposed bikeway access project. The Local Assistance Division recommends the approval of the request for the maximum funding for bicycle facilities, which is $75,000, $60,000 unmatched and $15,000 matched. The City of Charlottesville will be responsible for funding over the recreational access funding. We request your approval.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Last item, item number 8, is also a request for recreational access funding. With County and the Bristol District has requested recreational access program funding to assist in improving access to existing and new facilities within Crystal Springs recreational area. The existing road, Pump Hollow Road, is unpaved, and the project will provide an approximately 1-mile-long asphalt paving access road with appropriate shoulders to serve the 1,800-acre recreational area amenities. VDOT will administer the project, and the Bristol District has concurred in the project design and estimate of $250,000 for the proposed road access project. Local Assistance Division recommends your approval of the request of the maximum $250,000 for this project.
Madam Chairman, I'd make a motion to approve.
Second.
Any further discussion? Mr. Whitworth.
For the information of our new members here, I think it's important they understand that these funds don't come out of our transportation funds. They come out of our recreational access funds, over which we've been designated the chore of approving.
Any further discussion? Did we vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julie Brown. Jennifer DeBrule. It's been a long time coming.
It has.
Welcome.
Good morning, Madam Secretary, members of the board. The next 2 items have to do with the implementation of transit reform measures. Item 9 specifically deals with the implementation of transit capital prioritization. We have had the policy that we briefed you on last month open to a 45-day public comment period that ended on Thursday. We did make a few minor adjustments to the resolution based on those public comments, and it is very hard to read in here. So.
No, I am so sorry.
The light.
The
All right.
lights are dim.
The lights are dim, so I'm going to wear my glasses. A couple of the modifications I want to bring your attention to. In item number 4, under the service impact criteria, we did clarify how the points are going to be applied to projects, and we also added some language to include some additional considerations of bike pedestrian access is in part of the considerations for service impact. In item number 7, we added language to the accessibility measure to include select non-work destinations. This was a comment that we received that was really focused on better reflecting transit as a mode that provides connections to things like healthcare, education, and other non-work related activities. I will say from a staff perspective, we are concerned with the availability of good, consistent data statewide. So we're going to have to do some additional work on that from the technical perspective before that can be fully implemented. But that was a very good comment that those items are very important for transit users. In item number 8, major expansion, we also provided some clarifying language about the weighting frameworks. The way the original resolution was structured, we were focused on the SMART scale weightings that this board has already adopted. We included some additional language to say that MPOs and PDCs, they may go back and reconsider that to think about just specific transit capital prioritization, and gave them a process to do that by resolution of their boards. We did receive a couple of comments that we did not incorporate that I wanted to bring your attention to as well. We received some comments about the program structure and the focus of the funding being on state of good repair. That's something that has been a long part of this transit capital discussion, going back to the Revenue Advisory Board work that was led by Mr. Williams. This board has taken actions previously to say that our focus needs to be on state of good repair, and establishing a minimum threshold for state of good repair is important. So the comment that we received that said that the board should have more discretion in moving money away from state of good repair, we felt like was inconsistent with policies that have already been enacted by the board. So we did not make that change. So with that, DRPT staff, we're working very hard on guidance and outreach and workshops to implement this with our grant cycle that opens up December 1st. And with that, we recommend your approval of the policy.
Madam Secretary, Okay.
I had the privilege of chairing this transit advisory group and working with the professionals like Jennifer and Jennifer
Yes.
and their whole team, and a lot of dedicated board members that were asked to serve on the commission that took away from their families and their jobs to come to numerous meetings. And we accomplished a tremendous amount. We gave a report back. This is just as, if not more important, than the financial side of what we determined. And like we're trying to do now with the other issues, we sit back some options for funding transit at a level that it's still wouldn't have been adequate, but it's been much closer to adequate than it is now. And while the legislature just had so much to tackle financially, we felt it was a bad year to come in with the recommendation. The recommendation was well received, but it just got lost in the mix of trying to fix WMATA and everything else that was on the table. And I certainly don't blame the legislators for pushing it back. But the next job of the people that advocated for this is to go back and remind them, you know, now that things have calmed down a little bit, the money is still an important piece. But this is, it will make huge waves, it'll make huge improvements, and when the money does come, the system will be set in place to distribute it and spend it in the most responsible manner. So I really appreciate the talent of the staff and everything that worked through all that to get it together.
Secretary, I'd like to also make some comments. I want to thank JM and JD, the J2s. But I really appreciate the hard work, and I didn't really appreciate it until I sat on TISDAC, the enormity of the task, and just how important transit is to the Commonwealth. Last week I was in this Smart Communities discussion, and we broke up into breakout groups of transportation. We had rural and urban. And at the end of the day, at the end of the 2 days, there were common threads among the two groups about, finding transportation solutions, and it was about more integrated mobility, especially last mile, paratransit, these kinds of things. But there were a lot more common threads than you might think. Both rural and urban communities need more transit, value transit, and I think that we need to pay better attention, more attention to transit, and hopefully the General Assembly with this process will see the value of transit and invest more in transit. And it also it kind of reminds me of, or yesterday I was thinking about our conversation with the connected vehicles, the connected environment, how transit is evolving into this, not so much public transit or private sector transit, Uber, Lyft. It's going to be a more integrated transit to help, and our job is going to it needs to help customers figure out how to shop and buy for, mobile solutions from point A to point B, seamlessly. And that's a big task. It involves data analytics. It involves the integration of data. It involves a huge undertaking, but I think it's well worth trying. And I'm hoping we can support more pilots around the Commonwealth in rural and urban areas to see how we can facilitate that. So I want to thank all the staff, and especially the professionals that serve with me on the TSDAC. And I'm hoping I can continue to serve on TSDAC because I'm a big believer in transit. So thank you all.
Times.
So this is a really important body of work that has been completed. For those of us whose communities live and die on transit, this is as important as Smart Scale in terms of how what we have gets funded and how we move forward together to meet the needs of people. So I really want to commend the staff for doing this. I want, as someone who was not on TSDAC but who cares deeply about this, the ability to listen to the meetings live stream, to text in a question during the meeting and have somebody ask it was really wonderful. So thank you very much. I know that takes a lot of energy to do that, but I think it made participation by more people possible in real time. I do want to make a comment. I know we got the comment about state of good repair and could the money move each direction, and I fully support where the group has ended up, but I do want to I guess, say a word of caution, because state of good repair in the transit industry is about being able to maintain the service you have, the headways you have with high quality vehicles. And if the money gets really tight and we're in a position of having to choose between one of those rural providers who's taking people to the hospital, for their appointments and stuff, and funding something in a more transit-rich environment, we're going to have some very difficult choices to make. And so in the same way that Smart Scale, I think, has elevated legislators' understanding of the needs in their district and put dollars to it and names to it, it's my hope that where we don't have enough money, those same kinds of messages and really coordinated messages. It's not like there's a VDOT presentation and a DRPT presentation, but here are the transportation needs in your district that we cannot fund from multiple sources, that we will be able to move this conversation forward. And so my one request, Madam Secretary, is once you all get all your requests in and you kind of look at the buckets of money that are available next spring, that we get a presentation about, before we have to vote, in advance, so that the messaging around this can be clear and we can message it back into our districts that this is what we're able to do with the dollars we have. We're not going to necessarily be able to serve everyone's needs. And for transit agencies, which teeter on the edge a lot of times anyway in their localities, these are make or break decisions, and we need to, I think, elevate that and be transparent about it as we head into this process. So again, just huge kudos to everybody who did all the work. This is a good policy. It will guide us well, but we have to keep our eyes on it, just as we've been doing on Smart Scale.
Dr. Mitchell.
And just, and thank you very much for the comments. And we would be more than happy to come back and make a presentation. This provide the CTB with a different level of scrutiny and discretion over how we're picking projects than we ever have before. And so, much like Smart Scale, it will require us to make some decisions about sort of where that line is between the projects that get funded and the projects that don't get funded. And that's not something that we've had to do previously in the transit program. And so it will require some choices about priorities. And I think we'll see when we see what comes in our application pool this year. So, but we will definitely bring back a presentation and make those trade-offs much clearer to you all so you'll understand how this new policy is changing and affecting transit agencies.
I will just add, thank you for saying that. I really want to thank everyone for all the work that has gone into creating this prioritization process. The leadership from Director Mitchell, Jennifer DeBrule, the entire team. This has been a true labor of love to get to where we are today. You know, our commitment going forward is to really use the reform package that was passed in the past General Assembly session, the requirements on prioritization, capital prioritization. We're going to be addressing operating, the strategic plans that are going to be developed among our 16 largest transit agencies. We're looking at a year of implementing reforms, and we are going to make the business case for transit. And then in 2020, come back and make a financial request to fund what are really important needs around the Commonwealth. But I do appreciate the emphasis on coordinating and communicating transit as going forward. So all of these ideas are terrific, and I really do thank you all for such great work. We have a motion on the table. We have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Done quite yet.
I know.
Item 10.
I see strategic plan policy on
Strategic
there.
planning policy. So the next portion of the reform package was the direction that we develop new requirements for transit strategic plans in the 16 largest urban areas or agencies in the urban areas of the Commonwealth. The board is required by legislation to adopt guidelines for those plans by December 1st. So what we have before you today is a resolution, an implementation plan, and a guidance document. The resolution and implementation plan are unchanged by public comment. We did not receive any comments on those specifically. However, we received some very detailed, very technical, and very thoughtful comments on the guidance document, which we have incorporated in the revised version that is before you for approval today. And with that, we recommend your approval of the policy for the strategic plans and the guidelines.
Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Mr. McLaughlin, how are you? Good morning.
Secretary, members of the board, Mike McLaughlin, Chief of Rail Transportation, DRPT. I'm before you here today to recommend approval of a resolution to update the rail industrial access policy. This is something that we have been working for a good part of this year with the CTB Rail Subcommittee to make changes to the RAA policy, which has not been updated for a couple decades. This is a grant program that Mr. Donahue mentioned yesterday. It's one of those grant programs that has provided $12.3 million over 12 years just to the I-81 corridor alone. And this is something such as the Health Corporation, another slide Mr. Donahue had up, was able to tap. RAA often is that, as Jeremy Latterman likes to say, who's led this effort, that driveway to the mainline railroad. Some of the changes made include changing the grant to a $450,000 maximum with a 30% match, and also allow mainline switches. The mainline switches have been allowed. We have been discussing that with our stakeholders, and that is something that a change they wanted to see made. So with that, I recommend approval of this update to the rail industrial access policy.
To approve.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you.
That was quick. Mr. Donahue, are you here? Did he just? We need the Jeopardy clock. Do you want to go? Mr. Donahue, good morning. How are
Voted.
you?
Did you tell them we voted already?
Did you hear me say, that was quick?
I unfortunately did not. That's why I was tardy. So my apologies, Madam Chair, members of the board, Deputy Secretary Donahue. I have the smart scale cost overrun policy before you. There was a very extensive discussion regarding this yesterday, and we did brief the board on this at your previous meeting. As a quick refresher, there's 4 key points here. One, we're going to be doing additional validation and review of project estimates prior to the release of smart scale scores. Second, we are going to establish a quarterly report where you will be provided information for projects that are deemed to be at risk by their cost estimates. In previous discussions, we had talked about limiting that to after the receipt of bids with further due diligence. We're just going to do that whenever it happens after the end of scoping. We're not going to wait. So the second that happens, those will be included in the quarterly report. We then establish criteria for what we will provide the board when we bring a project back to you that does have a cost increase, as we determine whether or not you will consider adding funding to it or canceling that project, and the type of information you need to be able to process that request. And the final kind of component of this project is what I call the after action report, which is when something happens that we find drives this cost increase, regardless of whether you advance the project or cancel it, we are going to review what took place, come back to you all and tell you what happened, and if appropriate, revise internal policies to try and reduce the likelihood of that taking place in the future. So with that, Madam Chair, staff recommend approval of this resolution, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any further discussion?
Madam Secretary, my first meeting was July. This has been done in 3 months. This is tremendous reaction to the concerns. This is good government here. Congratulations.
Thank you.
If I wrote this, it would probably be a little more strict, but I have no doubt, given that our current commissioner, our current staff, that they don't have the tools in the bag here to not let this happen again. I think it's going to be a rare occasion instead of an often occasion, and I applaud them and full support.
I do have to thank the commissioner for his diligence in addressing this immediately, being fully transparent, and I know I and all of us appreciate that very much. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Mr. Donahue. With that, Commissioner Britch.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I have 2 items for your consideration this morning. The first being smart scale project budget increase for Laskin Road widening, UPC 12546, and Laskin Road Phase 1A, UPC 111711, all in the Hampton Roads District. As I briefed the board yesterday, Laskin Road project is currently underway. We're entering the right-of-way phase within a project advertisement date of January of 2019. To be able to keep this project at least on schedule for a January advertisement, we are seeking an increase of budget back to the project of a total of $19 million. The city of Virginia Beach has agreed to funding $9.2 million of that, with the balance of $9.8 million proposed for the smart scale budget. We are seeking your approval for a balance entry from the Hampton Roads District grant program of $9.82 million in smart scale funding, and we recommend your approval for this action.
Madam Secretary, we beat this horse pretty heavily yesterday. I'll just emphasize that this is a project that's been going on for 25 years. It's a project that if you really want to know not how to manage one, this is one. And I don't think there's any reason to debate the issues that have come along with this project, but it's direly needed in the city of Virginia Beach. It was needed 25 years ago. There's safety issues, there's bridge integrity issues, there's feeder roads that were outdated 40 years ago, and it's a major gateway into the resort city of Virginia Beach. So I make a motion we approve it.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Madam Chair, members of the board, my second item this morning is a smart scale project budget increase for Interstate 81 at State Route 75, better known as Exit 17. It's an interchange modification, UPC 109419. It's in the Bristol district. We're seeking your approval to, it is also in the right-of-way phase. As I briefed the board yesterday, there's a number of reasons why we've had an increase in the right-of-way phase associated with this to be able to keep this project on current advertisement schedule. We are seeking an increase in project budget of $10.6 million. $7.6 million is being proposed out of the district grant program. $3 million or 4.6 out of the balance entry account, $3 million to be arrived at out of cost savings for exit 19 once that finishes, and then a budget, a $3 million cost back to the high priority program. We are recommending your approval.
Madam Chair, move to approve this, and I apologize to the board and to the members that I couldn't be here yesterday for a discussion. Exit 17 represents a tremendous amount of economic possibilities for our area, and there's already been, at this point, if we were to go backward, it would only cost the taxpayers money. And I hope that as we go forward in the vote that we can progress this project. Move to approve.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Thank you, Commissioner. And you're up again.
I am. I have one action item for your consideration. This is the action on the annual or biennial reports by the Commissioner of Highways and the Office of Intermodal Planning Investment. Last month, I briefed the board about the minimal content that is associated with the annual report or the biennial report. Just to be able to refresh your memory that the Commissioner of Highways shall report to the General Assembly by November 1st of every, I believe, even year, and the contents of that report being how we determine our needs, the distribution of expenditures out of the distribution and the expenditures of the Highway Maintenance and Operations Program, an overview of the State of Good Repair Program, our distribution and description of use of the ITTF, and the collaboration with the private sector. That is the minimum content that we're putting before you today for your approval for what the annual or the biennial report from the Department of Transportation will be. As an overview of the Office of Intermodal Planning Investment, the minimum content that we had proposed is an overview of Smart Scale, an overview of the Virginia Transportation Infrastructure Bank, overview of the Toll Facilities Revolving Account, and a performance of our surface transportation program. So with that being said, staff is making a recommendation to approve the minimum contents of the biennial report.
Further discussion?
We just note that we've got 2/3 here of our major agency reports, and that it would be great in the same time frame as we get the Commissioner and OIP to also be able to get DRPT annual reports, so they're all coming to us at once.
Agree more, Ms. Hunt. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Caples.
Morning, Madam Secretary and members of the board. I have two action items for your consideration this morning. The first being order number 948. This is a maintenance-funded project in Northern Virginia District, Fairfax County on Interstate 495. It's a plant mix contract. It's a holdover from last year. We had two bidders on this project, and after performing an analysis of the bids received, we find that represents good value, and we are recommending for your approval.
Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The second item is order number N27. This is a construction-funded job in Bristol District in Wythe County. It's a state of good repair project on Interstate 81, replacing 2 bridges over Reed Creek. We had 5 bidders on this project. After performing an analysis of the bids, we find that they represent good value, and we're recommending for your approval.
Madam Chair.
Second.
Oh, further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I will thank you very much, Mr. Caples. Let me say it with. I do want you to know that Quentin Elliott was listening, and so he sent me a text. He said, "Thank you very much." He said, "I would not have held up in person, and everyone, all of us, would have seen the Tin Man actually has a heart." So there you go. Anything else before the board? So we are, some of us are heading over to the Governor's Transportation Summit on Innovation. We are across the street. There is lunch at noon. I think the remarks, Marshall, do they start at 12:30 or 1? Around there?
I believe 1 o'clock. I think lunch is at noon. Remarks start at 1.
Yes, and if you're there, I would love to recognize you for being there because we couldn't do what we do without this board. So I will say that. Did you want to say something?
I do have one comment. I've talked to the 2 J's about this, and also Joe Schwartz. A big problem in Fredericksburg, as you all know, is 95. And on the weekend, we talked about weekend data, and we've talked about the weekend traffic. And one of the things, and it's not going to get much better with the construction. The good news is we're going to fix it. The bad news is we got some construction, which is going to cause more congestion and more delays. So I've talked to Bob Thomas, Delegate Bob Thomas. I've talked to Joe. I've talked to other people about looking at the feasibility of limited VRE service.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Closer to that microphone. There's an echo coming back, so
Sorry about that.
thank you.
Sound better in 4D stereo. But need limited VRE. I'd like to somehow get Jennifer and get with VRE. I'm not really sure how to advance this, but I'd like to look at the feasibility of some limited service on the Fredericksburg line. I can't speak for Manassas, just Fredericksburg line for VRE. And I understand there's CSX, issues. I understand there are going to be some cost issues, but I'd like for us to look at the feasibility of that and come back to the board or with some options. I don't know why we don't have weekend service. It would help people, tourists. It would help people who work in Northern Virginia and DC during the weekends. And I can't do anything about 95 for the next 5 years. It's going to be what it is, but I can try to at least get some limited transit service on VRE.
Sure, and we would be happy to provide I'm not sure if you'd like a presentation or at the next meeting or something where we can discuss more the opportunities for increasing VRE service in the Fredericksburg line. As you may know, there is a smart scale funded project that is going to increase capacity along there as well. So we're working with VRE right now on moving that forward. There are a number of projects in place that are designed to lengthen platforms. And as far as adding more trains, you're right that we have, we need to be able to get slots from CSX to be able to do that. But we are doing some things right now with Atlantic Gateway that will be providing some more service too. So, but I'd be happy to brief you all on that as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Secretary.
Can I add on
Sorry, I didn't see who that was.
Can I add on to Mr. Connor's request?
Yes.
Which is the other quicker, potentially more flexible solution may be to run bus on a very predictable weekend schedule. That would allow people to come and go on OmniRide or something else. So it seems to me when we're looking at these really congested corridors, we ought to put it all on the table and see if there's anything that we can move that will let people move more quickly. I will just say, on my way down here, I diverted onto Route 1 at one point because it was a mess. And Route 1's lights are not timed in a way that lets you flow and avoid 95. And I was driving on a Sunday afternoon. So that's another thing that I just think all of those tools can in fact provide us. And then if we market it as, alternative ways through the mess till we get done, potentially people then have a shot at making it a better choice for them.
Thank you.
Anything else? Hey, well, Mr. Smoot, congratulations. You made it through your first meeting. So anyway, we're adjourned.
Sure.